Well, this isn't the most flattering lighting and the best place to do this, but it's fairly quiet right now, and hopefully the audio is good and clear for you. I believe I'm recording through the Bluetooth hearing aids, but they've been running all day long, so the batteries are bound to be a little low. I've done 2 videos today, and they're about matriarchy, patriarchy, part 1, part 2. I did the part 2 because I realized I forgot to fill in the missing blank, so I did part 2, and I still forgot to fill in some of the stuff. My train of thought was sidelined. Now, as you know, I do a flow of consciousness. The problem is there's so many places to go to. And so I do the best to stay with the spirit and go that route. But I end up cutting some of the short, cute stories. Well, I cut them short. And I don't always answer the questions. So in case you're wondering, let's talk about the matriarchy a little bit more. We all know that the Jews have a matriarchy. Well, the Haida Indians in Alaska have a matriarchy. And also the Tlingit Indians in Alaska, on Sitka, they have a matriarchy as well. And I really like the matriarchy that they have because it gives you an extended family. And not only that, but it's like the mother's brother, the children's uncle, is the one who becomes the disciplinarian for them. And he makes the decisions for them. Then their parents just enjoy their children like they're the best of friends. They don't discipline them. They don't chart their course for the future. It's mother's older brother who does all that and has the responsibility, and he has the say. So the children get to enjoy their parents as just a couple of grown big playmates. And their system, they've got 2 different clans, and they have to marry from someone in the opposite clan. That helps keep the genetics strong. Now, there's a group that has got a matriarchy, and they are actually the Jews today. They say that the Jewish lineage follows the Jewish mother, and that's what they practice. But I don't think the Jews know who they are. I don't think they understand where that comes from. It comes from Mount Seir, which is also called Mount Edom. You see, Esau, who sold his inheritance for a bowl of red porridge, became known as Edom. Edom is the word for red. It was red lentils, red porridge that he sold his inheritance for. He had already given up his inheritance. She's going to bark. She's still spotting a bit, so I'm leaving her in the kennel, and she's not going to be happy about that. She wants to be with me, and I can't blame her. I'm not going to tell her to be quiet. I'm just going to ignore her. I love my puppy dog. I kind of have her spoiled, and she runs circles around me in more ways than one. Picked up her good dog food tonight. Been feeding her 3 cups of food, twice as much as I fed my big boy Diesel. And Diesel was 70 pounds, and she's like 55 pounds. She burns it. Lorraine, quiet. Good girl, quiet. Okay. I'm not going to yell any louder. What I want you to understand is this. The Israelites had a patriarchy. The Israelites are descended from Israel. Israel's name originally was Jacob, and he wrestled all night, according to the Bible, on the banks of the Jordan River with a man who refused to identify himself, refused to give him his name, and touched his hip to put it out of socket and caused him to have a limp for the rest of his life. And basically, he wrestled all night with this stranger. And the word was, this was God, this was Yahweh he wrestled with. And his name was changed that night to Israel. The importance of Israel is that he who rules with God. And this ties right into our Holy Spirit. We want to cultivate the Holy Spirit in us, and we want to connect up directly with Creator Father God, Yahweh, the source of everything. And so that's why I call this the way. It's an individual way. Your way is not quite the same as my way, but yet there is a lot that's the same. Hopefully we abide by the 10 Commandments. We perpetuate the celebration of the high holy days of ancient Israel as we were ordered. And we also have a patriarchy. At least on the surface, there's a patriarchy. It has been greatly disturbed. But the matriarchy came out of Mount Edom from the Edomites. And they really inverted the culture on Mount Edom. For one, the Bible says specifically, not a thou shalt, but I'll say a thou shalt, not place a stranger over you. In other words, you want a king, it has to be one of your brothers. It cannot be a stranger. That's against the law that Yahweh gave them. But the Edomites didn't trust each other. They didn't trust each other at all, and they were so suspicious. Their law was the king that they agreed upon to rule over them had to be an outsider. So that's part of what came from there as well. And if you really want to expand your horizons and pick up another extra biblical book, the book of Jasher, and I often say, well, you know the prophet Jasher, of course, right? There was no prophet named Jasher. Jasher means the book of the upright. Now, does that mean they got off all fours and started walking on hind legs? Maybe. But I think it refers to those who walk in the Spirit upright. And if you read the book of Jasher, it's wild. It's in the same style as the book of Genesis, and it's kind of quaint. There's some humorous things in there and some things that are just mentioned there that are mentioned in the book of Genesis in particular as well. So there's a little bit of overlap. And there's some things that, well, you need to read it because you're going to have a real good laugh when you find out what the boys did when they went looking for their brother Joseph in the cities. I don't think it took them 3 days to walk into the house and look for their brother. So I'm thinking they patronized. Okay. I'm giving too much away, probably too. I don't sell a copy of the Book of Jasher. Usually $15 for a paperback copy. I don't have a preferred copy. I just have one. I haven't compared other copies. It's not that important to me. The apocryphal books, which we remove from the Bible, those 14 books are far more important to me. And I do look at other versions of those because the King James apocryphal books came from an inferior source. And that was done purposely by the Catholic Church. Then we Protestants thought, it's a good idea just to remove it completely, which is was a stupid idea, because there's a lot in the apocryphal books related to what's happening here and now in the world. And if you go through some of my videos, you will see the three-headed eagle, and that's in 2 Esdras. I think that's chapter 11, if I remember properly. But there's a difference between the King James Version, which was from the Latin Vulgate. That's right. It was written in Latin, and it was the Vulgate, meaning it was for the masses. It wasn't the high-end book. I have another version of the Bible that has got more verses, 70 more verses in one chapter alone in 2 Esdras. Now, if Esdras sounds familiar to you, that's because that's the Latinized form of the name for the prophet Ezra. Yeah, he's got a book in the Bible, the book of Ezra, right next to the book of Nehemiah. But he's got 2 more books in the Apocrypha. 1 Esdras, 2 Esdras. And the wild thing is that there's a lot in there that does not line up with the man-made religion which we've made And so either our religion is at fault, what we've done with the book is at fault, or maybe it was the interpretation or the source for those books. But Daniel's vision was continued, and Ezra did a lot of work, by the way. It's pretty major, and you ought to look at it. You really should. Probably 2 Esdras is the most important of the 14 books in the Apocrypha, followed by 1 Esdras, and then 1st Maccabees is quite important. I also think the books of Esther that were in there, including one that's a little bit of Greek manuscript, it's helpful, and it helps complete things, because the book of Esther in our Bible proper is the only book in the Bible that doesn't mention God. But yet, if you look at the continuation of it, if you will, in the Apocrypha, it mentions God. The Jews have a matriarchy. The Israelites, well, if you read the Bible, they don't record the mother's names. They don't keep track of that very much. It's not very important. However, I will tell you this, any woman mentioned in the Bible is extremely important. And if she's named in the Bible, she's a big shot in my book, because it takes a lot to get a woman's name into the Bible. Yes, it's a patriarchy, and that's what we have going. But the Jews have a matriarchy going because they are not real Judeans, if you will. They're not descendants of Israel, the man, at all. Not any of the tribes. And there were 13 tribes, not just 12. You go look for the tribe of Joseph and tell me where you find it. You find out that Joseph was split into Manasseh and Ephraim. And Israel, the man, adopted his 2 grandsons. Those were Joseph's sons that he made his full sons. And that's how you get number 13. Okay? Instead of 12. So that's kind of an important one, and I think you need to know that, because when you're talking to some neophyte, and if they're insisting you have to believe exactly what they say, and you can always peg them down and say, how many tribes are there? Really? There's 13. Now, we have the 13th tribe, which is a book written by a Jewish gentleman who proved that the Khazars were the 13th tribe. It really should have been entitled the 14th tribe. And he basically is telling us that the Khazars are not descendants of the Israelites. You need to know these things so you'll be able to distinguish the real Israelites. Now, a problem is that there are some real Israelites among the Jews in Jerusalem in particular. There's families that have stayed there forever. And so you need to be a bit flexible in your thinking and realize that and a Judite, if you will, a person from the house of Judah, is an Israelite. It's all screwed up because of the classification. It's a lot like Semitic peoples, Semitic tongues. It's a language classification. It's not a race classification. It's not a religious classification. It's a classification that the scholars, the linguistic scholars, came up with. And so when they talk about being anti-Semitic, they're not even real Semites that claim that, by the way. And they're more anti-Semitic than anybody else is, although they're using that and projecting that upon you and I as if we're the problems. They are the problems. And the anti-Semites are Zionists today. And they come out of ancient Khazaria, which is where the Ukraine is just a part of ancient Khazaria. It was a really big country, and the Bulgar was told by the neighbors, you can't keep doing this satanic worship you're doing, these sacrificing children, these weird practices, you love war, and I mean, a lot of bad stuff. And remember, I don't major in evil. The Bible told me directly, do not study evil, do not major in it. But I can tell you this, the Bulgar looked around and he could see that he had Christians, Catholics on one side of him, and he had Muslim, Islamist on the other side of him. The Muslim religion was just taking off. And the two didn't get along with each other. So it didn't matter which side he joined, he was going to alienate the other side. But he realized the Jews that were travelers and merchants got along with everybody. So he decided to convert to Judaism so they would be able to get along with everybody, and he could lease his mercenary army out to anybody, to the highest bidder. And so the Russians and the Belarusians, those people backed off of the threat that they were going to wipe them out if they failed to convert. Now, you have heard that story before. Maybe you haven't, but we're going to repeat it. There was a forced conversion at about 143 BC. The Maccabean revolt, the war started in 148 BC, lasted about 5 years to 143 BC. John Hyrcanus won, and he basically told the Edomites, primarily from Mount Seir, you either get circumcised and worship the one true God, convert to our faith, or he was going to put them to death. And of course, they took the deal. He made them a deal they could not refuse. And as a direct result, they blended in with the Israelite population. So in other words, the descendants of Esau merged into the general population of Israelites in Jerusalem, in Israel. And so they mingled and got mixed up. And as a matter of fact, it was so mixed up that by the time Yeshua the Messiah was born, Herod the Great, who was an Edomite, was in charge of Jerusalem. Very corrupt fellow. So this is something that's important for you to know. So that forced conversion was a problem. If we look back in the Bible, the Israelites were a small clan, low number of people, and the Canaanites, one of the king's sons, decided he wanted to take this woman to wife after he had ravished her, raped her in the field. And rather than go directly against them, the two brothers told them, that, hey, you want to marry our sister, then you have to follow our customs. So you have to become circumcised, and you have to follow certain protocols and marry her, if you want it. And then this fellow was really enamored with her, really wanted her. He talked everybody into getting circumcised. And while they were aching and humbled by having the tips of their penises carved off, the brothers, Judah and Levi, strapped on their swords. They went into the village and they killed them all. And it was so bad that the blood ran down the path and out, and the rest of the brothers saw that and discovered it. And Israel himself was very upset. He says, look what you've done. All of these people out here, we're just a few, and they'll kill us because, now. But the thing is that what happened is that the fear went out into the other Canaanites because they knew about this. Forced conversion, fake conversion. Those are important things so that you can understand how intertwined the roots are, and how Yeshua told us not to go after the bad guys because we would uproot some of the good guys. Wait until the harvest. And believe me, at the harvest time, there's going to be so much killing going on, so many people dying that, well, we're going to see, because we got about 18 months left before some real bad stuff happens. Matriarchies are important, and it's not a healthy way to go. Men build society, they build culture, they build civilizations. Yes, the women help with culture, but it's the men who are the primary builders. We give the women the civilization, the culture. We protect it, we provide it for them. We build the cities, the houses, we give that, we do that for them. And the problem is they're very capable of a lot of destruction. You know how when you probably have studied up on lions. When I was a little boy in elementary school, we found out that the lion, yeah, he may have been the biggest and the most powerful of the two, but he didn't go out and do most of the hunting. It was the female that went out and hunted most of the food. Something else you need to know. A lot you need to know, but among primates, mammals are primates, humans are primates. I think I got that right. I know humans are primates. Among primates, the females select the mates. So you may think, guys, that it's your idea and you're in pursuit and all that, but I assure you she's pretty much set this thing up and has sized you up way before. She knows about you way before you know about her. She was given extra capacities in several ways because she is the one that perpetuates the species. And the problem is when she uses the extra capacities that Creator Father God Yahweh, the source of everything, gave her, when she uses the extra capacities for seductive, womanly, manipulative means, she drives herself crazy. Now, my grandfather, when we were walking the property, I was almost 12, I was 11 years of age, and stopped at the end of the field, and I think he was in the middle. My dad was on the other side. And he stopped. He says, "Taylor," called me by my middle name. So, "Taylor, you need to know this. All women are crazy. And the sooner you come to know it, the better off you're going to be." And my dad was right there listening to all this. And I started to ask, "Gran," and he says, "I said all women are crazy." So I was about to ask about grandmother, and he cut me off so I couldn't say anything. Couldn't finish the question. In other words, shut up and listen, kid. It took a few decades for that to sink in. Women do need to be protected. They need to be sheltered. They need to be husbanded. A man needs to look over her, and it's his obligation. Patriarchies really build. Matriarchies destroy. Now, the Amazons were a matriarchy, but the Navajos told me, the elder told me the stories of when the women wanted to go off on their own and live independently from the men because they thought that they could do better without the men. So the women moved to the other side of the river, opposite from the men. And it was okay for a little while, but the women started to fall behind. They weren't able to do the hunting and gathering and everything that needed to be done. They just couldn't quite get the work done. And so the men helped them out a little bit. And but this was after they had failed several times over the years, and it kept getting worse every year. And I'm telling you what the Navajo elder told me, so don't get upset about me on this one with me. Larry was quite a man. Indian, Navajo, Dene. He says, after a while, the ladies decided they wanted to live with the men again after all, because they weren't doing as well as they did when they were living with the men. And Larry told me, Master Etzedy, he has a master's degree, he was a counselor, he was a very good man too. He told me that while they were living on opposite sides of the river, the men would get together with each other, and the implication was sexual relationships, and there was nothing wrong with that. Okay, fine. This is old stories from a long time ago. He says, but the women had slept with each other and did not tell the men that, and they didn't discover it for a long time. And I don't know right now, I don't remember. It's been a long time since Larry told me the story, but I think he told me something about bestiality. Or maybe he didn't. But the real big point is he definitely told me that women having sex with women gave rise to the beasts of the earth. And that was bad. And the women didn't tell the men about that for a long time. And he also told me about the two-spirited ones, which would basically be generally a man who crossed over to the other gender, transgendered somewhat. And those men weren't expected to take the same role as the Braves and the men were, and they were protected by everybody. They were kind of revered because they were different and unusual, and I think they probably did something as far as being very light-hearted, and maybe entertaining, or somehow were quite loving to other people. Maybe not sexually, though, is what I'm getting at. But somehow or other they lent to the character of the village, and they were regarded about like as a medicine man. Quite often the medicine men were that. And you're going to find that transgendered stuff goes way back in time. It's not a recent thing. You know, people say, really, they had that in Weimar, Germany? Yeah, in Berlin. But it goes way back beyond that. Way, way back. And it was a really crude sort of thing that they did way back then. It was, wow. I don't major in evil. I don't try to study that stuff. I mean, you might be interested in studying people's sexual perversions, but I don't think we need to study it much. It's in our face too damn much. So, anyway, the beasts of the earth. It says in the Bible at the end times, the beasts of the earth shall rise up. Now, of course, we think, oh, beasts of the earth. Wow, we're going to have woolly mastodons, Tyrannosaurus rexes. We're going to have these big, huge, man-eating, saber-toothed tigers. Beasts of the earth could refer to little bugs. It could refer to bacteria. It could refer to pathogens. You need to have an open mind. Main point I'm trying to get across to you is that there were some matriarchies that were somewhat okay. I think there was a woman named Amazon who started the Amazonians, and no, it wasn't in South America. It was on Asia Minor, the land of the Hittites and Hivites and the Canaanites, the place where Paul was told not to go preach there. The Holy Spirit wouldn't allow him to go there. He had to go up to Macedonia and a few other places before he could go into Asia Minor. That's because the Amazons ruled that area. And from my understanding, that is probably a culture that's an offshoot of Israelites. The Israelites went into dispersion, 722 BC. The Assyrians went in and took the house of Israel. Depending on how you read it or the analysis you read, there were or how you read the Bible, from which most of this was gathered from, there were 3 or 4 campaigns into the northern house of Israel by the Assyrians. And they were hauled off and taken into captivity and settled on the other side of Assyria as a buffer zone between the Medes and the Assyrians. So if the Medes wanted to attack the Assyrians, they had to go through the Israelites first. That's back when the Assyrians repopulated the land of northern Israel with incompatible types, other religions and primarily that was the biggest problem. Other races as well. So the people were miscegenating, were mixing, were adulterating their seed, violating one of the 10 Commandments. In my opinion, you might not agree with that. That's okay. And the Greeks also were founded by Israelites in dispersion. And the city of Troy was founded also by Israelites, but way before the dispersion. One of Zerah's 5 boys, and these boys were highly intelligent, and each was compared in intelligence to King Solomon. But one of the 5 boys founded the city of Troy. The Greeks were Israelites in dispersion. The Spartans, well, they were real big on homosexuality. The Athenians were real big on babbling, if you will, on what's the proper word for that? Well, they like to hear everything. Anybody that came by, they wanted to hear the philosophy in particular. So they had a school called the Arab, whatever it was. That's where anybody who came to town that had different ideas would go, and they would listen to them give presentations. I used to know these names for these things, but it's been a long time, and I haven't used the vocabulary in a while, so it's not that accessible to me right now. So they were Israelites in dispersion, and they also broke into the rest of Europe, Macedonia. Those were Israelites. And Europe was populated with Israelites. Even the people up in Great Britain were just Israelites. Ireland, Israelites. Spain, Israelites. And there were actually some Israelites abandoned in the New World, what they called the wilderness back then, which was North America. Solomon mined gold and copper up near the Great Lakes, and ships of Tarshish meant deep sailing, ocean-going ships. It was a 2-year trip to go to the mines and come back. The technology was not very advanced on the ships at the time, so it took a long time. And you can bet they went up the Mississippi River. And it's in the Bible that the ships were all destroyed in a big storm, which meant the Israelites in North America were stranded here. And some of those married into the tribes in the middle of the country. That's why the English were kind of shocked when they came over here and found Indians sitting in at tables with chairs using utensils. Not all of them did that, but some of them did do that. And that sort of tradition comes from Hamitic peoples. Ham, one of the 3 sons of Noah, populated Egypt. Hagar was a Hamite, if you will. She was a Hamitic person. She was of good genes, of good stock, and her son was Ishmael. It's what happened later is the problem. He didn't start off with a very good, the prophecy, if you will, what Yahweh said over the pregnancy was that he would be a man who would be a jackass of a man, and his hand would be against every other man, and every other man's hand would be against him. He's not the most evil or wicked in the Bible. That would be Cain, Esau. Now, I uploaded the second video, and it took forever for it to get cleared through YouTube. And that scares me, because when that happens, that's usually followed by indicates I'm going to get a strike or even have the channel taken down. And I did not do their training because they never could define to me exactly what the problem was, since I spoke the truth about causes of cancer, which I won't bring up here again, ever. They were upset because it was like They were upset because it wasn't in agreement with the World Health Organization. And the fact is, the head of the World Health Organization wrote a paper and published on exactly what I was saying. So, those censors are full of shit. I did appeal it and I got the channel back a long time later, but I don't bother to access it because things have gotten a bit crossed and mixed up. You're only allowed to have 2 YouTube channels, and they took down my other 2 channels. Well, they took down one of my channels, and so I popped up a second YouTube channel before they kicked me off completely and took the other channel down. And I submitted my IDs and all that, so I wasn't hiding from them. And then later on, I kept getting things crossed between these emails and the Google accounts and the YouTube channels, and getting messages that I was getting kicked off or another strike or something. It was just really pretty weird. Really weird. And by the way, Z or Twitter is not free speech. It's never going to be free speech. Elon is a progressive tyrant, basically. He wants a technocracy, not a democracy, and it's authoritarian. Authoritative means you've mastered the subject and you've studied all the literature for it. So you're authoritative because you have that. But authoritarian is where you lord it over others and dictate to them. That's Elon for you. And this police state, the one world government, that's all established already. It's all there. And Trump is the man who they've decided to usher it all in with. And the idea is they have to take us down, and then the rest of the world is open to them. So that's what the purpose of these wars really is. The purpose is to destroy America. It's not to expand Israel there, and it's not to for the Ukraine to go destroying Russia. It's for us to be destroyed, and that's what people don't get. I've been saying that, harping on that for quite a while. So that's what's going on. And the Ukraine is where the Khazarians came from, and that's the proper homelands, ancestral homelands of Bibi Netanyahu and all those people down there pretending they're Israelites, pretending they're from the tribe of Judah. Oh, and the reason they went after Germany is because Germany was the tribe of Judah, and they wanted to steal that identity, so they had to go after the real tribe. That's why World War I and World War II occurred. Yeah, they are better than we are. The Germans are. I lived there for 3 years as a little boy. They were very intelligent and more honest and more noble than we were. They took better care of themselves, the land, and all of that. And we made a major mistake going against Germany, especially when so many of our people were from Germany. That war never should have happened. It's a little bit different world than what you and I thought it was. So I think this is good for, Matriarchy versus Patriarchy Part 3. Hopefully there's no problems with uploading it. I'm not going to tell you about the causes of cancer and because they got really upset with me. And I was talking truthfully. I figured out 2 of those vectors, 2 of the 3 on my own, and I mentioned them to the neurologist. He was retiring. I'd seen him for 20 years. And he told me, well, don't forget about the 3rd root to causing and creating a cancer. I said, what's that? He says, black mold? Yeah. Yeah. We can go into that sometime, but YouTube is never going to tell me I have permission to talk the truth about that stuff. I don't feel like getting the channel taken down right now. Now, do give this video a thumbs up if you got something from it. If you can correct me or clarify things or remind me what the name of that Aragobulus, something like that, in Athens was, where they hung out at, and they babbled was the word. That's the word that they nicknamed them by, because they were always talking bullshit down there, talking philosophy and listening to each other and exchanging ideas. Remember, those were Israelites in dispersion. In Europe, those are all Israelites. Israelites were Caucasoids. And Yeshua, the Messiah himself, not only did he have a golden blonde beard and golden hair, he had blue eyes. I didn't have blonde hair. I got what I got now. I don't have much hair. And I don't have blue eyes. So I want you to understand that the only Israelite seed, only Israelite DNA gives you blue eyes as an adult. And there are a lot of black people running around with blue eyes today because they've got some Israelite DNA in them. They've got a claim on it. And we cannot, I do not think we look, I think that we need to encourage them to worship our God. And we can segregate. I don't think that's a problem. Most of them want to segregate at this point. But what I'm getting at is we need to encourage them to read the Bible, to abide by the same laws we abide by, and we need to cheer them on and be open-minded, because they actually have a good argument in the art records, the archaeological records, as to the black Hebrew Israelites. Now, I laughed when I first heard it, partly because it kind of tickled me. I mean, the idea that they want to be part of us. Okay, I'm open. Well, let's see what goes on. And then I looked at them and saw these young men marching and saying good sayings together, very well regimented, very well organized, like a militia should be. And they dressed in gold and purple robes, which kind of fancy colors. And the old men were there giving them orders. And these young men were abiding by the orders. And all I could think of is, these are fine young men. These ain't ghetto rats, man. They're good people. And who am I to say you can't bend your knee to Yahweh? Who am I to say you can't confess him with your tongue? And I don't think any of us should be in a position where we want to deny them that. And this is coming down to a big fight. And when the Negro man understands his origins better and understands the big picture better, he's going to be wanting to join with us pretty badly to help us take down the evil ones and save Mother Earth, because the evil ones are destroying the Earth's ability to support life. We have to take them out. And I don't mind who joins me in that fight. I don't give a damn if they're polka dot colored. Thanks for hanging out with me this long. Really appreciate you. I think we've hit a whopping 638 subscribers. Picked up 8 subscribers during the week so far. That's a nice sign. The Bibles, the new Bibles have been ordered. I want to sell every one of them. Only 5,000 are coming in. And I don't know if we'll ever really see them, but I think this will be the last batch, because the earth is going to be in so much turmoil. So get yourself a hard printed copy so that when the electric lights go out, you still have a Bible. And you'll have it in your hands, and nobody can change it on the fly electronically like they do with a lot of publications in Amazon. They change a lot of that stuff up because it's easy. Just use the computer. But you already own the printed page, the book. They ain't going to go hunting that down and changing that on you and reprinting it and slipping it in your hands. They keep watering down and downgrading the Bible just like they water us down and downgrade us. And remember, we're supposed to live according to the Bible, book of Genesis. Our lifespans were limited to only 120 years. 120 years. Trump says, we can expand the lifespan to 120 years. Let's put it this way. The people that control him know exactly what they're doing. They know what's in the Bible. They probably know the Bible better than you or I do, better than we do. And they're following it. And they're doing their best to manifest the prophecies in there and to make things come out in a way that's a little different than what we read. a lot different than what we expect. And I know the Catholics keep saying Jesus can save anyone. No, man. Those sociopaths, and we have got bodies that have been taken over by spirits. Other people, as they're passing, they get their immortality, the spirit that's in them. They chase out the spirit that's in the body originally, usually a younger child. They torture them, and they actually bury and control that spirit so it can't get back to that body, while the spirit of this man or woman who's older that's passing on goes into that other body. I just heard about that stuff, and I'm open-minded. One has to be open-minded. We don't know it all. You may say, well, that's not very scientific. Well, the truth is, my field is scientific and mythology. Very, very rigorous science. But when it comes down to the bias, more than 80% of the psychological literature is biased. We are the ones that manage the plantation for the owners, for the keepers. And we're doing a good job for them and a lousy job for the people. Psychology undermined America. I'm not happy to tell you that, but it's quite true. The attorneys are a little bit worse in many ways, because they imprison us all and they cheat us all the time, and they don't abide by the law. And the worst ones are the physicians and the doctors. And whenever there's a communist purge, they kill anybody that wears glasses, and they kill anybody with an education, and they go after the doctors first and foremost. The higher the education, the more likely they are to get killed right away. And that's because those people are part of the power structure, the oppressors, and they are actually actively killing us and helping the people like, Mr. Gates, kill us. Pray to Yahweh that he will have a coming to Jesus moment with President Trump, and will take the man right over and get him working for Yahweh, because we can unite the country to restore the Constitution and restore the original structure our founders gave us. That's the only way that we're going to make it, and it'll take some time. And yeah, there's going to be some bloodshed, a little bit, hopefully not much. But if we go about it as an out-and-out rebellion, it will not work. We have to return to self-rule, which means we pull ourselves out of the system. We do not give our consent. We get rid of the adhesion contracts that go from one thing to the other. Just like in the legislation, they pass a bill, refers to another bill, refers to another bill, and between them all, it's some really ugly stuff they're doing that they're authorizing. And the Patriot Act. We should have the Fourth Amendment, a right to privacy, safe in our persons, our homes, our papers, and the electronic medium should be covered as well. But the Patriot Act is a gross violation of that. And, they said that a woman had a right to privacy when they decided to legalize the right of abortion. I say R-I-T-E, not R-I-G-H-T. It's not your right, it's a right. It's a sacrificial right to Molech, to the bad God, the real God, that the Khazarians, who faked their conversion to Judaism, they kept going with their satanic religion underground. That's part of how we got these secret societies. Buy some of my Bibles. I want to sell 5,000 Bibles, man. That would be really nice. And I'd like to sell them fast enough we can get another order in, so there's something to spare when the disruptions occur. I've heard some of the ocean currents have already started going in the opposite directions. I haven't confirmed that yet, but I'll be looking into that. We know that Turtle Island, North America, is going to flip over, basically. At least that's how it's described by the Hopi and their tradition. And the Mississippi River for 2 months, 2 years actually, has been cracking and the water has been too shallow. Wondering what's happened to the water? Where's it going to? Well, it's been going down to the bedrock. And so the Mississippi is cracking open at a pretty quick rate when you consider it, but it's not instant. It's going to take some more time, and the Mississippi is going to open up. According to the clairvoyance and prophets and all of that, the agreement is that we're going to have a waterway, an ocean waterway, dividing the country in half where the Mississippi is. And it's going to be as much as 200 miles separation. Don't know if it'll be that far. Might be close enough you can see the other side. But they're telling me it'll be about 50 or 60 feet deep, and it will be salt water. Look at wormwood. Do a word study on it. We believe that that's what's returning is wormwood. And we also think that if this is wormwood, it comes back every 4,100 to 4,300 years. So it's coming through. So we may not even get the opportunity to exchange nukes, which I kind of like the idea. We may be dealing with a very destroyed world in short order. We may all be scrambling for survival, or I should say, what's left of us scrambling for survival. Remember, there are about 6 different days of the Lord in the Bible. That's right. And on 2 of those, Yahshua the Messiah is here, back. So to me, I think he comes back 2 more times. And neither of those include some damn rapture. That was a satanic sneak around into the Bible from Darby. Darby's daughter had a dream. They wrote it up and made it part of their dispensationalism. And anyway, his castle's the most haunted castle in Great Britain. Found 150 bodies buried there on the castle grounds and in the basement. He wasn't exactly a Bible-reading Christian, from what I can tell. May Yahweh bless you.